Overseas voting for the 21st presidential election began today in more than 100 countries around the world. Voters in New Zealand were the first to cast their ballots, while many more are expected to exercise their rights from across the globe over the next few days. With the election 2 weeks away, the DP's Lee Jae-myung and the PPP's Kim Moon-soo held rallies in the capital region, a major battleground for a second day. Reform Party's Jun-seok once again dismissed a possible candidacy merger. Korea and the U.S. will hold technical discussions on Tuesday in Washington, hoping to address U.S. tariffs, with a focus on 6 areas, including balanced trade and non-tariff measures. It's May 20th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Park Jeong-min. Overseas voters begin heading to polling stations on Tuesday. It began here in the Asia Pacific, while many more are expected to make their voices heard from different parts of the world over the next few days. This time, more polling stations have been added, meaning more voters can exercise their rights overseas. Our political correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
Overseas voting for Korea's presidential election has begun, as ballots open Tuesday in 118 countries. Some 182 polling stations at Korean embassies, consulates, diplomatic missions and offices will be open through Sunday local time from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The first votes were cast at the edge of the world in New Zealand. Cho Won-hyuk, a resident and lecturer living in Wellington, says some wait hours for the polling station to open, and many travel from regions outside the capital with anticipation and a sense of unity.
For example, I already mentioned people flew from different regions to physically vote in person. So that means everyone in the embassy, they really appreciate, and then sort of in the community, we know each other. So it's really more welcoming, and it's not just an administrative process. So whenever I go to the embassy or other diplomatic missions to vote for Korean elections, I'll feel really welcome, and my vote really counts.
The 258,000 Koreans registered to vote abroad this year account for just 0.6% of the total Korean electorate based on 2022 figures. But their political engagement and efforts to ensure their rights of suffrage are crucial to South Korean democracy. Last year's parliamentary election saw a record turnout of 62.8% among overseas voters.
Symbolically, still this overseas voting is important as a critical mechanisms for integration of Korean diaspora community into the nation's democratic processes. But also, this might enhance the legitimacy of Korea's democratic system, because overseas votes mean that the system tries to include more diverse perspectives, even from overseas.
To ensure more Koreans can enjoy their right to vote in this election, 39 additional polling stations have been installed in regions where the number of overseas nationals exceeds 30,000. In the United States, these include the states of New York, California, Massachusetts and Texas, opening from Thursday to Saturday. Specific locations and hours can be found on each embassy or consulate website. When heading out to the ballot booth, voters must bring photo ID. Those who have immigrated or acquired permanent residency must also present proof that they remain solely Korean nationals, such as visa documents and permanent residency cards. Requirements for each country of residence is available on the respective embassy or consulate website. The last overseas polling station this election will close in Hawaii before sunset. Ballots will be returned to Korea via diplomatic pouches to be counted together with domestic votes after election day voting ends. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Turning to the campaign trail, the DP's presidential candidate held a virtual meeting with overseas voters today, the first day of overseas voting, to listen to their difficulties. Later in the day, he campaigned in Gyeonggi-do province near the border area with North Korea. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Marking the first day of overseas voting, the Democratic Party's presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung encouraged overseas voters, saying a vote was stronger than a bullet. Ahead of a rally on Tuesday, he held a one-hour virtual meeting with overseas Koreans. During a discussion, overseas voters from various countries shared the common difficulties they faced, especially inconvenience when voting.
Botswana has no Korean embassy or consulate general, so Koreans here have to go to South Africa to vote.
Lee Jae-myung emphasized that appropriate measures should be put in place to ease voting for those living abroad and introduce several ways to do so.
Overseas Koreans currently have to register and vote separately, but with a better system, both could be done at once. While some worry about mail-in voting security, countries like the US use it, and Korea already allows similar voting for people with mobility issues or those in hospital. I wonder if it's fair to not allow overseas Koreans to vote by mail.
He also suggested setting up temporary polling stations with temporary staff, saying that given the high personal costs voters currently face, the government should provide this kind of support. On Tuesday, the DP candidate continued his campaign in Gyeonggi-do province, where he served as governor. He held rallies in the cities of Ujeongbu and Goyang, as well as Paju, which borders North Korea. During his visit to Ujeongbu, he highlighted peace and security and promised to support the development of the northern part of Gyeonggi-do, which has long been restricted by heavy regulations.
Hasn't this northern region made big sacrifices for the country's security over many years? Those sacrifices should be properly compensated, so people from now on don't feel it's unfair.
At his final stop of the day in Gimpo, he pledged to remove tolls on the Ilsan Bridge, which connects Gimpo and Goyang. 신하영, Arirang News.
The PPP's candidate has also been touring the capital region. He's focusing on a message claiming that he's more ethical than his major rival. This as Kim continues to make efforts to merge with the Reform Party. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Touring around the capital and the surrounding areas, People-Power Party candidate Kim Mun-soo on Tuesday focused on ethics, emphasizing his DP rival Lee Jae-myung's legal risks. He tied in the message with the recent ramped-up security for Lee, saying the DP is using its supermajority on the floor to now make bulletproof legislation to protect Lee from legal risks.
I'll be an ethical president. I will never wear a bulletproof vest. I would get rid of the bulletproof glass and never try to pass bulletproof legislation.
Also during his rallies, he compared his two Gyeonggi-do province governor terms to the one his rival Lee served. He said it was he who created Gyeonggi-do's economic zone, such as Pyeongtaek's Samsung Electronics plant, the largest chip plant in the world. Earlier in the day, he also shared his pledges on fostering culture and cultural activities as he visited a culture and arts organization. His major pledge was to make community culture centers across the nation accessible to anyone within 10 minutes to enhance cultural and art activities. Meanwhile, he also continued his efforts to convince another conservative candidate, Jun-seok of the Reform Party, to merge. Facing the media, he sent a clear message.
He used to lead our party. As you've seen at the debate, there's absolutely no difference between us. Also, it was our party's problem that caused Jun-seok to leave. So I think it's right to be together.
Jun-seok continued to reject the offer, saying it doesn't make sense. But a movement to form an anti-Lee Jae-myung bloc started as the PPP's interim leader Kim Yong-tae met with the new Future Democratic Party's chairman for talks on future cooperation. This is a new party made up of former DP members who were not in Lee Jae-myung's faction. The leader of this party said the PPP's constitutional reform proposal of shortening the next president's term to 3 years, with the next one starting a new 4-year term with re-election, aligns with theirs. In the meantime, the PPP's Kim Yong-tae also proposed a debate for the First Lady prospects, but the DP and Reform Party candidates immediately criticized the idea to turn it down. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok remained active in the southwestern city of Gwangju for a second day. Addressing the audience there, he spoke of pursuing the spirit of former President Roh Moo-hyun, who sought unity between traditionally conservative and liberal regions in the southwest and the eastern parts of the country. Lee was also at Jeonnam National University to touch base with the student body there as part of his campus cafeteria outreach. Earlier, he sat down with the Gwangju Mayor Kang Ki-jeong and pledged support for AI and future mobility industries. A South Korean trade delegation has departed for the U.S. to engage in more technical talks on tariffs. Moon Hye-ryun covers the agenda ahead.
A South Korean delegation will begin working-level talks with a U.S. trade representative in Washington on Tuesday local time as part of broader efforts to finalize what's being dubbed the July package. With both sides aiming for a comprehensive trade deal by July 8th, Seoul is expected to focus on minimizing the steep tariffs on its key exports. However, time is tight, with the U.S. negotiating with its other trade partners and South Korea's presidential election just around the corner. 6 key topics are on the agenda for this round of technical discussions: balanced trade, non-tariff measures, economic security, digital trade, country of origin, and commercial considerations. South Korea plans to use its cooperation in areas like shipbuilding as leverage, with the ultimate goal of lowering the 25% reciprocal tariff rates and the sector-specific tariffs on cars, steel, aluminium, and semiconductors. Meanwhile, the U.S. is expected to push back with its own demands, with concerns over its trade deficit and various non-tariff barrier issues. The Trump administration has pointed to a wide range of non-tariff barriers in Korea, such as restrictions on importing beef from cattle older than 30 months, as hindering American exports to the country. Seoul has since responded by saying there were few barriers hindering trade with the United States, and experts say that some concessions could be made for low-impact sectors in order to gain leverage in more critical areas.
We should be ready to ease non-tariff barriers on items like agricultural and livestock products, especially those with low import volumes. In return, we must push hard to secure U.S. tariff cuts on high-value exports, like automobiles and semiconductors.
This comes after high-level ministerial meetings during the APEC Trade Summit in Jeju last week, where South Korea's Trade Minister An Duk-gun followed up his meeting with the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer with a press conference. He revealed that a ministerial-level interim review is scheduled for mid-June to finalize the results of the negotiations, meaning that important decisions related to the trade agreement will be made by the next administration. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Following last week's talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul, U.S. President Trump spoke with his Russia and Ukrainian counterparts, respectively, about peace in Ukraine. Putin called for the elimination of what he called the root causes of the war, while Zelensky said decisions should not be made without Kyiv. Bae In-ju tells us more.
Following the much-anticipated call between leaders from Washington and Moscow, U.S. President Donald Trump said he made progress during his conversation on Monday with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. He proclaimed on his social media that the call went very well and that Russia and Ukraine had agreed to immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire, without providing details on when that will happen.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
Putin, who described the call as meaningful and frank, said Russia is ready to work with Ukraine on a memorandum on a possible future peace agreement. But he did not address demands from the U.S. and European countries for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire, meaning no major breakthrough in ending the war.
At the same time, I would like to note that in general, Russia's position is clear. The main thing for us is to eliminate the root causes of this crisis.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he also spoke with Trump before the American leader's call with Putin. He called for an unconditional ceasefire, while urging stronger U.S. sanctions if Russia is not ready to end the war.
I asked him, before his conversation with Putin, not to make decisions about Ukraine without us. We agreed that we would get in touch after his conversation with Putin.
Zelensky also urged Washington not to distance itself from peace talks, saying he is considering a high-level meeting between Ukraine, Russia, the U.S., and European countries. This comes after Trump said the conditions of a peace deal could only be negotiated between Russia and Ukraine, possibly with the help of the Pope, leading to speculation that this signals a possible shift in his stance, that he was leaving the two countries to find a deal without the U.S. as a broker. 배은지, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, Israel has vowed to seize control of the entire Gaza Strip, while at the same time allowing some humanitarian aid into the enclave. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The Israeli military, which recently launched Operation Gideon's Chariots, aimed at recapturing the Gaza Strip, announced it had struck some 160 targets, including Hamas infrastructure. However, according to Al Jazeera, airstrikes also targeted several hospitals across the enclave. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a video statement on the same day, vowing to make progress amid fierce fighting, adding that Israel will take control of the entire Gaza Strip. The remark was slammed by Britain, France, and Canada, who were critical of Israel's expansion of its war, as they vowed a concrete response if Israel's campaign continues. Also following pressure from around the globe over the blocking of any humanitarian aid into the region, Israel has begun allowing some trucks carrying necessities.
Today, Israel is facilitating the entry of trucks with baby food into Gaza. In the coming days, Israel will facilitate the entry of dozens of aid trucks.
The Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry, Eden Bartal, said Israel always complies with international law and with its obligations and statements. However, he was critical of the recent condemnation, saying the international community must decide whether to side with Israel or Hamas. He added that the aid that began coming in will only cover a few days. The Foreign Ministry official also stressed that the humanitarian aid is to help the population, not to support Hamas. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korean music industry leaders have once again earned global recognition for driving global success outside the United States. Billboard's 2025 Global Power Players list, released Monday, featured top names including SM Entertainment co-CEOs Jang Chul-hyuk and Ta Kyung-jun. The list highlights the agency's global impact from aespa's successful world tour to the success of British boy band Dear Alice, ranking #2 on the UK's music chart. Hive chairman Bang Si-hyuk also made the list, recognized for his powerhouse lineup of stars, including BTS. Although Hangang's Nobel Literature Prize win may have sparked a reading craze, it was difficult for visually impaired people to enjoy it. To help those people, one actor, who is also a publisher, began converting audiobooks into audio plays. Cha Yun-kyung has the story.
My First Summer Gwangju, written by novelist Kim Geum-hee, is the first work from the audio project run by actor Park Jeong-min. Park began this project to find a way to give a book as a gift to his father, who had lost his sight. He released the audio play first before publishing the book in paperback, targeting the visually impaired as the first readers.
I thought visually impaired readers might not receive books as a gift firsthand, so I wanted to give books as a gift for visually impaired readers firsthand.
Park's audio plays are different from standard audiobooks. They add more details and descriptions than the original audiobook released after the source book's publication. Starting with actress Go Min-si, many famous actors participated in the project with voice acting to make a great piece of radio drama.
While I was working on the piece, all the characters were speaking to me with my voice. Although they were all different figures, now I can hear the perfect voice for each character.
This is great news for the visually impaired who may have limits on listening to standard audiobooks or reading Braille books. There are not enough books in Braille for the blind, and it is also hard to access institutions that possess them, so demand for audiobooks is growing. Visually impaired readers cannot find the books they want easily. Also, they have to listen to audiobooks with an unnatural text-to-single voice service.
I think this is a new type of genre like a movie for the visually impaired, which makes me feel like a visual handicap is not a handicap anymore.
The paperback version of My First Summer Gwangju will be published for the non-disabled on May 8th. Cha Young-kyung, Arirang News.
NASA Artemis II mission plans are well underway, with the manned lunar exploration set for next year. What's exciting is that a South Korean-developed CUBE satellite will be joining the mission to monitor cosmic radiation. Lee Yoon-jin has the details.
NASA's Artemis II test flight is scheduled to launch in April of 2026 and will be the first crewed mission to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. Now, South Korea is making significant strides in space exploration, with the Korea Aerospace Administration signing an agreement with NASA on May 2nd to mount a Korean-made CUBE satellite on board the mission's spacecraft.
CASA and NASA signed an Artemis research agreement. The agreement prioritizes research cooperation in 7 areas, including lunar landers, space communications, navigation, and astronaut support tools and application systems.
The Korean-made CUBE satellite set to join NASA's Artemis II mission is the K-RAD CUBE, roughly the size of a backpack weighing 19 kilograms. Once deployed into high Earth orbit, the satellite will separate from the rocket and enter the Van Allen radiation belts, which are packed with high-energy charged particles. The K-RAD CUBE will monitor cosmic radiation and analyze its effects on astronauts, a critical area of research for human presence on the Moon and Mars. But because of the intense radiation, missions through the area will be brief. The satellite is set to conduct measurements for about 28 hours, although depending on conditions, that could be extended to up to 2 weeks.
The K-RAD CUBE will also carry next-generation semiconductor multi-chip modules and memory semiconductor chips designed to assess radiation effects in space.
Of the 54 countries that have signed the Artemis Accords, only Korea and Germany have so far signed formal agreements for the Artemis II mission. Taking advantage of the unique opportunity, data collected from the K-RAD CUBE will be used for various space activities and further future research. Lee Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
The weather has returned back to early summer again. The highest temperature in Seoul rose up to 26 degrees Celsius, but with the high humidity, it felt even hotter at 28 degrees. The southern parts of the country, read on the map, were as hot as 30 degrees today. It will be even hotter tomorrow, with Seoul reaching up to 28 degrees, the highest temperature this spring so far. More rain is expected in many areas of the east tomorrow. Estimated rainfall will be up to 40 millimeters in eastern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and Gangwon-do province, and up to 60 millimeters in the mountainous areas of Jeju Island. Tomorrow morning will start warm at around 20 degrees all over the country. Highs will move up to 29 degrees in Daejeon, 30 degrees in Chuncheon. UV rays continue to be very strong during the day. Please protect yourself in advance when you go outside. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.